Gracious Father in heaven, Lord, we are so thankful for the blessed opportunity to come together and study, and really thankful for the email from our sister Adriana. And that's something for all of us to perhaps look into. And when it comes to the internet and the 5G and everything that is said about it, when we know that this is an avenue that you are, whether or not you want to say the evil put it in position, but it is here for us to use to spread the gospel and spread it fast. So we're just thankful for it. And may you continue to lead us into truth and set us free from all the deceptions that are out there in this world. We pray, Father, tonight for Sister Lana as she's going to present the message, that your Holy Spirit would be upon her, that you would bless her with your words of truth, bless her with clarity of mind and clarity of speech, and that all of us, Father, may be blessed through this presentation tonight. We pray, Father, for the latter rain to fall upon us, and may you continue to watch over us and protect us, Lord, as things are increasing in the world, as the work is increasing. There are many challenges that each one of us face, and I just pray that you give us your strength to do everything that it is that you've called us to do, and that we might, Father, bring glory and honor to thy name in all that we do, in all that we say. We thank you so much, Father, for this blessed opportunity and privilege. We praise you, and we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
And you can share screen from your side, right? You good? Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. So let's put it on slideshow mode. So this is this presentation has been put together a little bit hastily.
Hey,
but
Sister Lana, do you see at the top of your screen there a few different options to the left? If you go under display settings and click duplicate.
Okay.
Because that way it makes the slideshow big on all our screens, because before it wasn't, so it's good now.
And thank you for the extra practice to remind me for Sabbath again how to do it.
Yeah, we finally learned.
So this is a comparison between modern Israel and modern Babylon. And the way Tess puts it together is that this becomes very important in order to understand where we are right now, and to sort out some of the mistakes that we may have come across. So she starts with the explanation of the previous story, that the Daniel 11:40. So Daniel 11:40 consists of part A and part B. So this part A is basically a story of papacy, is Catholicism, or story of counterfeit Israel or Babylon. So papacy rules for 1260 years, dies and is resurrected. Here you can see that for 1260 years, the king of the north and king of the south are at war with each other until the time of the end. So it's also the 1260 years at the time of captivity of Israel under the ruling of captivity in Babylon. So in 1798, papacy receives a deadly wound, and for a year it's a period of death, and dies in 1799. Pope literally dies. And later on, King of the North is coming out of the bottomless pit. And here, this is a very interesting piece that I have never heard this before, but who do you put in a pit? Yeah? So it's obviously a dead man. So somebody dead. So then pit is a grave. And somebody who comes out of the bottomless pit is a king of the north. So the part B deals with the story of king of the south. And it's very similar, but the timeline is slightly different. So at this time, this is the story of since 1863 to 1989, the true Israel is still in captivity. But in 1989, the king of the south receives a deadly wound that is marked with the fall of the Berlin Wall. But the fall of the Berlin Wall did not end with the death, so it also followed by a period of death where it officially dies in 1991, and the Soviet Union gets dissolved, and the anthem was changed. It wasn't really changed, it was the same, we just returned to the old anthem, but the words have been changed slightly differently. And the interesting part was that it's also resurrected. So we want to compare and contrast King of the North and King of the South. So if you can see that their stories are very similar. Both receive deadly wound. Both have time of the end. Both have period of war. Both have period of death. Both die. And both get resurrected. And in terms of, this is a very interesting detail that I have never heard before, is that in terms of apostasy and captivity, King of the North cannot be compared to King of the South, because King of the South cannot be in apostasy to a boss they don't have. They are rebellious to religion, no matter whether it's Satan's or God's. So as I have always been, as being a normal Seventh-day Adventist, we were always taught that there's only two camps. You're either in God's camp or Satan's camp. So anybody who is not in God's camp is automatically in Satan's camp. And the understanding was that anybody who is not under God is definitely serving Satan. But here, but I could never put together what did actually Jesus mean when he said, and he called unto him. Okay, he called them unto him and said unto them in parables, how can Satan cast out Satan? And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but has an end. So this is truly, this movement really opens up reveals this, unlocks the meaning of what he actually meant. That he introduces the concept that there is those who serve the Satan are part of his kingdom, and those who are not part of his kingdom. And when some time ago in some other presentation, somebody asked, so what would be the example? Do any of you know what is the example of a rebellious entity that does not have a boss, that does not recognize any religion?
What do you mean?
So is there an equivalent to King of the South that does not have a boss, that he doesn't worship a counterfeit, he doesn't worship Satan?
Did you mean the King of the North? Because the King of the South is the one that doesn't have a boss.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So somebody who is equivalent to King of the North, and the answer was that it was
God's kingdom.
Yes. So it was Satan himself, because it was a mystery of iniquity. He did not serve God, but neither did he serve any other god. So.
So you're I see what you're saying. Okay. You're asking, was there ever another situation where sin came up that had no way to be there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. Without being part of anybody else's kingdom.
Yeah.
So that's why in Daniel 2, statues in Daniel 2 is the King of the North as opposed to the mountain, which is the true King of the North. since we can't compare and contrast in terms of apostasy and captivity, we have to compare Israel and Babylon. So the true Israel has, like we already reviewed, has the similar reform line. Babylon has similar reform line as the true Israel. So here in true Israel, God is the true king of the north, and Israel goes into apostasy, and as a result ends up in captivity, Babylonian captivity. And then God, when God brings king of the north against Israel to punish, and king of the north is not part of his kingdom, but he uses them. So Catholics had two choices. So they abase Satan but lose temporal prosperity, or choose temporal prosperity and abolish Jesuit order. So they fell into their own Laodicean condition. So they apostatize, and their boss brings king of the south to lead them into captivity. The king of the south is not part of his kingdom, just like king of the north in the original story is not part of the God's kingdom in the line of true Israel. So that's one of the reasons that it's obvious that King Cyrus, even though he was prophesied and named by his name, is actually not, may not be saved. He's not part of God's kingdom. So what brings Israel out of captivity is three-step prophetic testing message, which is fear God, give him glory, or judgment is coming. Not actually or judgment, but judgment is coming. This message begins in 1798 and formalized in 1818. So what brings counterfeit Israel out of captivity is the very similar message that is presented in the visions of Fatima that three little children had. And they had the messages was that fear, consecrate Russia, and judgment is coming. So let us consider the history of modern Israel. Here is a general overview so that you can see before we go into details. First, it starts with first angel's message, raising up of a messenger, an honest-hearted farmer. Then 1816, William Miller starts studying Bible with Cruden's Concordance for 2 years. And in 1831, he starts preaching, and in 1833, he gets his credentials to preach. And it results in disappointment. But before that, Samuel Snow comes and joins, and he's half right. Both are half right and half wrong. You can also see that there is periods of scattering and gathering. So the history of Millerites was the period of gathering. Let's go further. So first angel's message, William Miller, an honest-hearted farmer, was raised. In 1816, bought concordance to study Bible, studied for 2 years, and by 1818, message is formalized. So 1816 and 1818 is increase of knowledge and formalization of the message. In 1831, he begins to preach, and 1833, he gets credentials. And Samuel Snow joins and gives an exact date. October 22nd, 1844 is the second Advent. And William Miller doesn't accept the exact date. He's vague about date until the very last moment. Both are half right and half wrong. And the story ends in great disappointment. So the Millerite history is the history of failure. In 1798 to 1844 is a gathering time, so just like I already mentioned, and it is also called Alpha, which was followed by scattering time after the Great Disappointment. In 1844 to 1850, Israel is scattered, and in the review held November 1st, 1850, paragraph 9, she says, the Lord had showed me that he had stretched out his hand the second time to recover the remnant of his people, and that efforts must be redoubled in this gathering time. In the scattering, Israel was smitten and torn, but now in the gathering time, God will heal and bind up his people. In the scattering, efforts made to spread the truth had but little effect, accomplished but little or nothing. But in the gathering, when God has set his hand to gather his people, efforts to spread the truth will have their designed effect. All should be united and zealous in the work. I saw that it was wrong for any to refer to the scattering for examples to govern us now in the gathering time. For if God should do no more for us now than he did then, Israel would never be gathered. I have seen that the 1843 chart was directed by the hand of the Lord, and that it should not be altered, that the figures were as he wanted them, that his hand was over it and hid a mistake in some of the figures, so that none could see it until his hand was removed. So when was the first time he recovered his remnant? It was Millerite history of 46 years. And it's interesting that there's also 46 chromosomes in human cells. The first attempt to gather his people was, which followed by the scattering in 1844 to 1850. And 1850 onward was another attempt to gather his people. And God led the designing of 1843 chart. They are to construct another chart in 1850. So the outcome of Alpha is that the chart was created, people fell in Laodicean condition, and instead of work taking off like it should have, it brought them to 1863. So what is happening in 1863? There are two things. Organization of the church. Is organization of the church a good thing or a bad thing?
Good thing.
Good thing, yeah. Prophetic message rejected. So, this is something that I noticed that I may not be right, so you can correct me. On one level, in our history, it is the other way around. The church that was organized, the one that is organized in 1863, I wouldn't say it's dissolved, but it's not valid anymore. But the prophetic message is accepted. So, but you can scrap it. It's not very well thought through. Between 1863 and 1989, there's a second attempt to finish the work. In 1888, a message was brought to sort out the problems of the church. An 1888 message rejected due to internal dynamics of the church. I think we all have heard of the 1888 problems. So here we want to focus in the second part of the history of the modern Israel. In 1886, Butler, which is the leadership, he attacks Wagner's position on Galatians. And so writes a pamphlet attacking Wagner's position. And In 1888, Butler is leader and Wagner is a newcomer. So I think you can see that why one could get wrong, because it's a similar situation. Butler opposes the Wagner's message. So who is right and who is wrong? It's 50-50. They are both right and they are both wrong. To 9MR 218.1. This is a mistake. It's not 2018. It's 218.1. He, Ellen White's angelic guide, stretched out his arms towards Dr. Wagner and to you, Elder Butler, and said in substance as follows: neither have all the light upon the law. Neither position is perfect. Light is sown for the righteous, and gladness for the upright in heart. There are hundreds that know not why they believe the doctrines they do. So in general, history of modern Israel has two parts. They come out of the scattering time of captivity into gathering in 1798, and this is Alpha history. So this is Alpha history. And this ends in great disappointment. And also there's a half right and half wrong issue that takes place. And in 1850 is another failed attempt to gather. In 1863, they organize but reject prophetic message. 1888, another attempt in the middle of the scattering time, Butler and Wagner. They are half right and half wrong. So can we compare this to this is gathering, this is scattering. So they are half right and half wrong. Can we compare these two to each other?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And why can we compare them together?
Because they match and they're both Alpha history? Because of the half right and half wrong?
So the answer would be that because this is both time of the, these histories are histories of failure.
Yeah, the Alpha histories, yeah.
Not come in 1888, even so he tried to gather them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so so it's very natural to expect the same thing to happen again. In 1989 marks the beginning of the Omega history and Daniel 11:40 Part B, which is the time when Elder Jeff is raised up. Omega starts in 1989 with bypassing of Adventist leadership and the beginning of the increase of knowledge of the Daniel 11 by Elder Jeff, where he when he laid out in the time of the End magazine, and this corresponds to the 1833 in Alpha. So this is the beginning of the history of Omega. I don't know what I put it there. So the counterfeit is never perfect. So consider the modern Babylon. So let's look at the history of modern Babylon. It has two parts, Part A and Part B, Alpha and Omega. So here's the Alpha, Omega. In 1798, they go into captivity. In the history of True, William Miller does not have an open vision, but Ellen White does. So William Miller should be Lucia, but he's not. It is Ellen White. And this just shows that counterfeit is never perfect. It's not the same value. Did you get that?
Did you say William Miller should have been Lucia?
Yeah, meaning that William, if the counterfeit would be perfect, Ellen White would be in our line. Lucia should not be where she is in the counterfeit. but it's not perfect counterfeit. That's why she's where William Miller is, because she comes first.
I
So
see what you're saying.
And she
Yeah.
has open visions, and William Miller doesn't have visions.
Yeah, and Ellen White comes after William Miller, but in the history of counterfeit, first comes Lucia. And you can understand because Satan doesn't have a prophecy to wake his people up, because they believe in mysticism, and mysticism would be the only tool to use to bring the message. In 1850s, the influential Italian family of Catholic lawyers see that the Catholic Church is in captivity. By living in voluntary poverty, they illustrate that the Church is in captivity and family has two grandsons, a Cardinal Francesco and Eugenio. A cardinal of 1900s, Cardinal Gaspari, worked with these two grandsons of the Pacelli family, Francesco and Eugenio. They believed that the Catholic Church will come to power, but needs restructuring and needs introduction of a new code of canon law. Francesco Pacelli writes Lateran Treaty and later organizes negotiations with Mussolini. So he's working with Italy. So he's working Italy, while Eugenio Pacelli works on the code of canon law and later introduces it to Germany. Francesco's job to take Italy and Eugenio's job to take care of Germany. Eugenio later negotiates the code with Hitler. Becomes Pope. Okay, there is a history that I think I went too quickly because I was in a hurry. So when the Pacelli family, they're one of the first ones to accept. Eugenio Pacelli is one of the first ones to accept the messages of Fatima. And that happens is because on May the 13th, he basically, once he was ordained by Pope and sent as a messenger to Germany on a mission to negotiate with Hitler, not negotiate with Hitler, to negotiate with Germany, he goes to Germany, but without much success. And that's because they didn't have the right person yet. And that was 1917. So when he after a period of time, Hitler comes around, and then they think that they have the right person to negotiate with. So Eugenio Pacelli becomes Pope Pius XII. He's the first Pope to accept Fatima. Before then, they were all in rebellion and did not accept messages of Fatima. In 1899, Eugenio Pacelli is made priest and begins to have an increase of knowledge. Once he becomes priest and dedicates his time to study the code of canon law with Gaspari. The work is finished in 1917. In the same year, the first vision of Fatima. So now he has two messages that he carries: is the vision of Fatima that he accepts, and restructuring of the church. And we can see that it's paralleling our history, where we have the organization and prophetic message. But then they, just like the true, they organize, but there's I'm looking at the different stuff. Yeah, restructuring of the church. On May 13, 1917, Eugenio Pacelli was promoted to Archbishop for the specific purpose to send on a mission to Germany to restructure the church's relationship with German government. On the same day, Lucia had the first vision of Fatima. And from that day on, Eugenio saw himself connected to Fatima. His negotiations are without much success. He needs a leader that he can work with. He finds that leader in Adolf Hitler. So when Adolf Hitler is coming to power, there is one democratic party left that is standing in Hitler's way to absolute control of the government, and that is the Catholic Center Party. and they are the last party restraining the Nazi party. Adolf Hitler says to Eugenio Pacelli, "I'll sign your code of canon law if you remove the Catholic antibody and give me total control of the government." In January 1933, Eugenio does that. This marks Hitler taking control of the government. In 1945, it ends in failure, counterfeit of the Great Disappointment. So what was Eugenio Pacelli's problem?
He chose the wrong North person.
Yeah, he chose the wrong beast. Yeah, Hitler won't be worked with. They were trying to work with the US at that time, but it was too slow. They became impatient. So you can read Hitler's Pope, but that history is also 46 years. So they have their alpha that is 46 years. But if you notice that it comes later than the true. So it's as if it takes time for Satan to realize, to see a pattern. Then he starts copying, and then not realizing not seeing clearly what is going on, not knowing that he's going to fail, because I don't think he would plan to fail. So they have the same problem that in 1945 it ends in their disappointment, and they have the story that half and half wrong and half right. They got the prophetic message, but they chose the wrong beast.
That's really interesting that Satan, instead of putting all his forces and everything at that time to go destroy God's people, instead he uses them to go destroy this random free agent that popped up out of nowhere. This independent ministry just over there in Russia. He just we have to destroy that one right now.
Yeah.
Because you think his whole goal is only to destroy God's people, but he needed, I don't know. That's really interesting.
I was thinking, yeah, go ahead.
That was the 3-step prophetic testing message of Satan's, wasn't it?
Yeah, Satan. And his people don't always do what he tells them to do. They were disobedient.
Yeah, but his 3-step prophetic testing message led his people to Russia, not to God's people. You'd think that his message would lead them to go kill God's people, but instead it led them take care of this guy over here instead.
Yeah.
I think it's also shows his nature that he really craves to be worshipped. And Russia is a big country with a lot of people that believe, that at that time decided not to believe in God, so not to believe in anything, and that was for him a big waste. I don't know if that was the reason, but there's also could be that angle where the king of the south prophetically is the hindrance for the king of the north to persecute God's people. So he needs to deal with the hindrance first.
Yeah.
And if the glorious land is the United States, the second biggest world power is Russia. And so if the United States was kind of God's glorious land, then I guess he wanted his own glorious land.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So the Code of Canon Law brought all the Catholic churches under the Pope, and it united the church under him. So he had to fight his own church to do that, as they saw it as a dictatorship, even inside the Catholic Church. So here we have a side-by-side comparison that we could see what is the history of modern Israel with history of modern Babylon, and you can see that our time of the end corresponds with 1899 in modern Babylon, Eugenio Pacelli becoming a priest. Increase of knowledge parallels with the first vision of Lucia. The 1833, the first preaching of where William Miller gets his credentials, parallels with formalized with the Code of Canon Law signed by Hitler, and 1844 that ends in disappointment in our history corresponds to 1945 in disappointment, as they were two half right and half wrong. And again, it's period followed by the period of scattering. So it's also interesting that in the November 1st, 1850 message by Ellen White that she had a vision about that God has stretched out his hand to attempt for the second time to gather his people, is corresponding to November 1st, 1950, so 100 years late, dogma of the assumption. And they have the same problem, organized prophetic message. So Second Vatican Council, organized prophetic message. So I think it goes later on, the details of this story, of this part of the modern Babylon. In Review and Herald, November 1st, God showed me the necessity to draw another chart. So in 1950 is a Catholic Jubilee year. So I guess this piece of information. And Pacelli uses the message of Fatima and the message of Mary to unify and gather the church. And he uses papal infallibility to make dogma of the Assumption official Catholic teaching and irrefutable by the decree on November 1st, 1950, the counterfeit of our 1850 Ellen White's vision. New Pope comes in, Pope Pius XIII, and attempts to reorganize the church and starts gathering the Second Vatican Council. And he's not a believer he's not a Fatima fan, so he's a rebellious Pope. At the Second Vatican Council, Pope specifically wants Russian Orthodox Church to be present, but the Russian Orthodox Church doesn't do anything without the government's approval. So 2 months before the Second Vatican Council, in a secret meeting, the Catholics negotiated with the Russians that if they were to allow the Orthodox Church, the Pope had to promise that there would be no loud condemnation of the Soviet Union or communism. They agreed, thus rejecting the prophetic message of Fatima. So counterfeit of 1888 is 1989 in modern Babylon, in the line of modern Babylon. And Pope John Paul II accepts the message of Lucia. He was shot on May 13, the same day when when Lucia had her first vision, and almost dies. After operation, he asked for the third secret of Fatima. He read about the judgment and he applied the judgment to the failure to dedicate Russia. He unites with Reagan in attempts to take down Soviet Union. And he makes several attempts to consecrate Russia. First time he makes mistake, and then I think he tried it 3 times. Russia tells him of his mistake and tells him to repeat it with all the bishops. So what does John Paul II want to do? For Russia to become Catholic. But upon fall of the Soviet Union, Russia chooses capitalism, which is a great disappointment for John Paul II. And he's known as an angry, there's a book about him as an angry Pope or something like that. Or it may not be a book, it may be just an expression. In that history, the Pope Pius XIII is dismissive of Lucia. In 1960s, the third secret of Fatima is to be made public. Lucia says, okay, I think I put it in the wrong order. Lucia says, Mary told me that the third secret to be made public. He read the secret and locked it away and opened rebellion to the instruction of Lucia. So this happens before John Paul II. Then John Paul II comes in and accepts the message of Lucia and Fatima. Angry Pope. He would tear people apart for turning to capitalism. His speeches were vile. He was angry after the fall of the Berlin Wall, Reagan wants to go to war with Iraq. Pope tells him not to. Bush Sr. and Jr., neither of them listen to John Paul II because they already used him. They got everything they wanted out of him, and they did not care about his wishes. And John Paul II has another problem: Jesuits. Jesuits are a liberal fraction in the Catholic clergy. So they are liberal in their views in women's role in the church, contraceptives, etc. And John Paul II represents a conservative fraction. John Paul II has a close ally, Malachi Martin, who writes against the Jesuits. So Malachi Martin wrote a book exposing this fraction of clergy. The same problem as in Butler-Wagner case. John Paul II and Jesuits are half right and half wrong. And in 1996, St. Galen's group formed against John Paul II. Powerful cardinals, also known as St. Galen's Mafia. Their goal is to install a liberal Jesuit pope. They are meeting from 1996 to 2001. And in 2001, Cardinal Bergoglio from Argentina made a cardinal. And St. Galen's group met him, and they know that they have their man. In 2005, John Paul II and Lucia die. Mafia wanted to get, St. Galen's Mafia wanted to get Bergoglio in, but Ratzinger was chosen. He was trained by John Paul II himself. And in 2013, Pope Benedict steps aside, and Mafia has their second chance. And Bergoglio becomes Pope Francis. So they are right now, they're in open civil war inside the Catholic Church. There's a split in the church between the liberal and conservatives. So many view Cardinal Pope Francis as a dictator. So here we just want to again look more in detail and remind ourselves the history, side-by-side comparison of modern Babylon with modern Israel. And so what is the conclusion of this comparison? That the alpha is failure and omega is success. And what is the conclusion of this conclusion? I guess what this presentation was trying to address is the issue of half right and half wrong that was preached by some people, and she was trying to show that we cannot use the history of failures, half right, half wrong, from the history of failures to understand what has happened in 2012. Maybe are you guys understanding what is this about?
What are you asking? Like why we can't use this?
Yes. So why is this a problem? Why is this even this whole presentation? I mean, why did she present this whole comparison? Why did she do
Because
this?
it was presented that in our line we have half right. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, because she's basically refuting with this to show that we cannot do that, because if we do that, this means that our message, the Midnight Cry message, is tainted and it has half right, half wrong, as well as the 2012 the issue that Jeff and Parminder had. So we cannot use this history and see that this was prophetic. It was not. So alpha is a failure and omega is success, which means that, so if we compare it side by side, history of Millerites, which is the history of failure, then there's second attempt to gather his people, failure, but the history of 144,000 is success. So the omega is success. And if it's and as Ellen White said, that you cannot use the history of gathering to explain the history of scattering and the history of gathering, or maybe the other way around. But you got the message, right? Like we're not to use the parallels from here in this history, because if we do that, we're gonna have to admit that also Midnight Cry message is tainted. And also another part which is very, very important, I think that we should really think about it. So Moses, in the history of Moses, which was a history of failure, and Babylon, which is also a history of failure, the Babylonian captivity. So in both of these times when God was calling his people out and saving his people from the captivity, these disciples were looking at these histories, and like in Deuteronomy, it was said that by the testimony of two, a thing should be established, right? So they would look at the history of Moses and history of Babylon, how God delivered his people, and that's how they saw the Omega would look like. That's how they saw that Christ's coming would be like. That he would literally establish his earthly kingdom. He would drive out all the Romans. But it was, this time it was success, but it was nothing like what they were expecting it to be. So we can't take the history of failure and lay it over the history of success and make it a direct application. So Elder Jeff took history of 1844 and 1888 and said Miller and Snow were half right and half wrong, and Butler and Wagner were half right and half wrong. So by the testimony of two, he was expecting that would happen there. They were saying the Sunday law is coming, but then they didn't see it at that time, and therefore Parminder and Jeff were half right and half wrong. But this is mistake, so we can't take failure and use it in success. Did you guys get the message?
Yes, and I'm glad to see that board work, because when I didn't finish, and Adriana's going to do it, but on number 9, this part was cut off. This graph, the image that you have there was cut off, and I didn't have it correct on what I was.
Oh.
I'm not clear on it. I'm not sure I'm not clear on, but I'm not clear on it.
Oh.
Okay, may I ask you where do you think that you're?
No, not really. I think just the statement of being half right and half wrong, about Parminder and Jeff were half right and half wrong, but this is a mistake. Can't take failure and use it in a success. And I kind of understand the chart you put up there because of the failure from the alpha being failure, but the omega being success. I don't know. I'm just a little mixed up on it.
Yeah, the reason why we cannot do that is because Ellen White has already showed us she has a direct quote where she says that the history of gathering, from the history of gathering, you cannot use it in the history of
scattering.
Of scattering, yeah.
Okay.
So because of that, now we know that Millerite history was history of failure. It was a gathering, but it was failure. And 1888 failure because Jesus did not come.
Okay.
Jesus would never come in this Millerite history, but he was going to come in 1850 and in 1888. So the omega is not the history of failure. Meaning that it's the same as saying that everything that's going on now is simply continuation of the history of scattering, the history of failure, which cannot be, because there is significant things that happen that we know they are prophetic, and we have a firm foundation. So
go ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it like this. So what we thought was isn't, and it's just back to showing us again that things that we have learned we have to put aside and accept the present truth and understand it.
Yeah, but I think she's explaining the position that it's not. We cannot do that. We cannot consider that what happened in 2012 that it is a history of that it is the same as what happened in Butler and Wagner or in William Miller and Samuel Snow's situation.
So
Because
it's not the
those were
same.
histories
So
of-
2012 is not the same as Butler and Wagner and
No, it's not, because if it was, it would mean that even our midnight cry message is tainted. It's half right and half wrong, because Samuel Snow, what was it? It was a midnight cry.
yeah, but wasn't 2012 about the Sunday law?
Yes, exactly. So it was a date.
Right.
So
yeah,
why?
So Jeff denied it because no, that was time, huh?
Okay, so then we're coming to the very important question. So was there a Sunday law in 2014 that was predicted in 2012?
Say that again.
Was there a Sunday law in 2014 that was predicted in 2012?
I don't know, but I think it's yes.
Yes. And the reason is because it's our problem of the way we read, because when we read Sunday law, we take it literally and think that it's literally going to be Sunday observance. But then when we go to study carefully, we find out that Sunday law is in its heart is a church and state.
Right.
And in that way, in 2014, there's important things that happened. That there was a meeting of Steve Bannon, for example, that I don't know if she mentioned about it, but Steve Bannon met with Cardinal, I think Burke or somebody else, which is very important. They were figuring out the strategy. So it was an important. So it is church and state. So it is there. Because Sunday law, the spirit of Sunday law is church and state.
That is interesting and is true, because I was listening to Parmenter again and how we have been studying 9/11. 9/11 is like for our time, but 9/11 is not like when the buildings fell down. When the buildings fall down, when they talk about that and in the spirit of prophecy, it's all around the Sunday law and who chooses the Sunday law or Sabbath. And when they choose man's way, that's when the buildings come down, and that's the Sunday law.
Yeah, so the choosing the man's way was the Patriot Act that went into effect like very, very fast right after 9/11.
Yeah.
A few days. Yeah. So why is it mistake to assume that Parminder and Jeff repeated the William Miller, Samuel Snow, and Butler and Wagner case, phone case? And here's why. Because if we assume that, I guess this slide just reiterates everything that I just said, that if we assume that Elder Jeff and Elder Parminder, that they predict the Sunday law in 2014, and William Miller and Samuel Snow, so they half right and half wrong, but Samuel Snow predicts Second Advent in October 22nd, 1844. But we know that October 2nd, 1844, Jesus did not come. He could not have come. So it's a history of failure, and you cannot use the history of failure in the history of Omega, because Omega is success. Like Ellen White said, so she gives us a rule in 1850 for the future, so that we can unlock the future.
That's interesting. So in this scenario, it's the Omega that's a success, and Alpha that's a failure, as opposed to the other one we just learned. Right?
Yes, Alpha was failure. and omega is success. It was always failure. Alpha always was failure.
So, because I thought you just said that the Elder Jeff and Parminder was a success in 2012.
Yes, it is a history of success because we are in the history of success.
And it's the omega line, because if the
And it's omega.
alpha line would have been a success, we would not have a need for an omega line.
Everything from 1989 is the omega.
Okay.
So also another reason is, what is 1945 in our line? It is Panium, yeah, Panium. And for us, it is victory in our line, as King of the North is defeated. Yeah. So Rome wanted to ride the beast, but beast did not obey and did not respect Rome, so he failed. So in our line, 1945 is a victory. And in the Milnerite history, if you say that October 22nd is the second Advent, you are definitely wrong.
October 22nd is not the Advent. It's wrong.
Yes. No, I mean, October 22nd is this, to say that October 22nd is the second Advent is wrong, because it's not second Advent. If it was, we wouldn't be here.
Exactly. Gotcha.
Yeah. Because so these two aren't equal. And in Millerite history, this is what failure looks like. To say that 2012 was failure because it didn't include light that had not yet opened, so had not yet opened up, would be to say that 1996 is a failed message. Half right, half wrong, polluted message. And it was not. It was perfect. All it needed, was expanding upon, not correction. So Russia was so what was the correction? That Russia was the head of the King of the South, and as such, it never went away. So if we take the concept in the history of success, that the message is half right, half wrong, then we have to assume that the midnight cry message is also half right, half wrong, and we cannot do that. We have to know firmly why we believe that it is truth, that there are no built-in mistakes. If we accept that midnight cry message is half right, half wrong, then we are repeating the history of failure. In the history of Christ, what methodology are the disciples were using? I guess I just said it. I mentioned it, that they had the two witnesses, the witness of Moses and the witness of Babylonian captivity, when a man from the east is going to come and deliver them, and it will be glorious. So they had these two stories, and they were expecting the third one to be the same, but it was not. So they're combining I guess it's the same repeating. They're combining the history of Moses and history of Babylon to see how their deliverance is going to look like. They thought that Moses is going to kill all the Romans, and they're going to walk out of Babylon and rebuild their nation. So they were making the same mistake as Elder Jeff, combining two histories of failure to see the history of success, because that is how John the Baptist taught them. But in the history of Christ, you need to follow not John. So another conclusion is one of the heaviest conclusions of this study is that in the history of Christ, you need to follow not John the Baptist, but Christ. So when you have two teachers, and one is relying upon the testimony of two, and the other one says completely different thing, but we know that Christ was truly, he was the Messiah. And at that time, John the Baptist himself witnessed that he is the Messiah, that Jesus is the Messiah. So the disciples were to follow Christ, not John the Baptist. If they kept following John the Baptist, they would be the ones that were criticizing the disciples of Christ and Christ himself for baptizing. So, so the John the Baptist, the greatest prophet that ever lived, but he had some misconceptions about what it meant to be delivered, and he taught the disciples that. So when they come to the history of the cross, what's the problem? Why do the disciples believe that? And in GC 594.1 it says, before his crucifixion, the Savior explained to his disciples that he was to be put to death and to rise again from the tomb. And angels were present to impress his words on minds and hearts. But the disciples were looking for temporal deliverance from the Roman yoke. And they could not tolerate the thought that he, in whom all their hope centered, should suffer an ignominious death. The words which they needed to remember were banished from their minds, and when the time of trial came, it found them unprepared. The death of Jesus has fully destroyed their hopes, as if he had not forewarned them. So in the prophecies, the future is open before us as plainly as it was open to the disciples by the words of Christ. The events connected with the close of probation and the work of preparation for the time of trouble are clearly presented, but multitudes have no more understanding of this important truth than if they had never been revealed. Satan snatches to catch away every impression that would make them wise unto salvation, and time of trouble will find them unready.
You know,
So,
something
yep.
interesting is that they were expecting temporal deliverance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why do they accept this Sunday law in the end? Why does the Seventh-day Adventist Church going to accept that? Why is the world going to seek the Sunday law? They want temporal prosperity, just like the Jesuits. I don't know if there's a relation there, but because they're looking for temporal deliverance.
Also, they're looking for a sign, because Sunday law for Adventists in a way is also a sign.
Yeah. So they're going to choose temporal prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
Just thought that was
And
interesting thought there.
so how not to fail, how to not fail in history of success. And she says that you can fail the history of success individually, meaning that God is going on. I mean, the program is going on, and God and everything going as he has planned, and this time is going to be successful, but individually we can fail if we don't listen to the message, we don't follow the message, we don't keep up with the message, if we don't know who we follow. So we need to know who to follow. So not John the Baptist, but Christ when there is Christ.
So I'm sorry. So know who you follow, but it's actually know who to follow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But I guess that's how she put it, and I just kind of copied and pasted. Use correct methodology, so that not only to listen to message, but to be able to prove it for yourself, that you could believe it yourself. One more point. So if you're a disciple, this is the cross, and we're approaching 2019, which is Raphia, and you're a faithful disciple and you're following Christ. You've identified those two messengers. They are always there's always Moses and Joshua, Elijah and Elisha. Sorry, I think I missed that one. John the Baptist and Christ. And there, that there is also new leadership. Can you be safe in that history if you're looking to go to the Pharisees and the structure for the information? Is there anything you have to gain from this? Nothing. Let us bring that internal. If you're a disciple, you're trying to know what to believe, and there are two messages, internal, and you have a message of Christ, messengers. You have message of Christ, and you have the internal Judas. Do you have anything to learn from Judas? Nothing. He's half he's halfway. He's one step in with Jesus and another step in the old church. So there is no safe, so the whole meaning is that there is no safe information in the false stream. Not everything in the false stream of information is false. So like I just wanted to say that in Russia RT, for example, many news pieces are very, worthy to be watched and very interesting. But not everything in the false stream information, okay, not everything is false. But that doesn't mean that it is safe to drink it. It is safe to follow it. It is not safe to watch the false stream of information. Let us not be fooled by the human sophistry that does not make it safe. We have to decide whether to follow Ulai or Hidekel. Some of the items that one can hold on to, the goodly Babylonish garment, are the gun control, capitalism, views on capitalism, etc. So this is kind of a call where she makes a call to be to make a decisive step to follow the Ulai and not Hidekel, to choose wisely and to know exactly what you're believing. So so what we have learned, so we have compared and contrasted the history of modern Babylon with modern Israel. They are very similar. There is a alpha in both histories. They both end in disappointment. There is a attempt by their respective leaders to gather. So in the modern Babylon, it would be Satan. In modern Israel, it's Jesus trying to gather his people, and they both have failed attempt to follow the message, but they're not fully there yet, and then they both have repeated half right, half wrong cases, and they both are led out by a leader that was raised up. In each case, in the case of modern Babylon, is Cardinal Francis Bergoglio, Pope Francis, and in our history is Elder Jack, and that is I think that is it. So the true and counterfeit, both have Alpha and Omega. Cross is our raffia. It will be a complete success. In both histories of failure, they had preconceived ideas that were a stumbling block for them. So this, I think, this is a very important part as well, to be ready to shed the preconceived ideas and to be ready to understand that any of our ideas that we have been holding on to may have been conspiracy theory. To not fail a history of success, one has to put aside conspiracy theories, old ideas, and traditional beliefs about what the end of the world is going to look like, and be ready to learn and unlearn much.
Amen.
I think that's all I have.
Unlearn much, yeah. We're hearing that. And you know that last little statement that you made there, it goes along with what she said. It was in Brazil. I have it here handy. Just real quick. Is that there's 3 parts to the midnight cry: the date, what we expect to see on that date, and why we mark that date, and calling out of our Protestant way of thinking. So that covers what you kind of touches on what you were just laying out there, that letting go of all those preconceived ideas and understanding what to have that to be, it is a line of success, but it may not mean it's a line of success for each one of us individually, because she's telling you how to have success.
Yeah.
What was the third one, Elaine?
Huh?
What was the third one?
Oh, sorry. Let me pull back.
Date, what we're to expect.
Let me, and I can email it out again. I think I saved it to where I can email it. The calling out of the Protestant way of thinking.
Okay, Protestant. Okay, great.
So it's not about the date. It's about understanding the message and how not to fail it, and understanding all these things that we've been taught have been so laced with maybe truth, but there's danger in the wrong stream.
I think it's pretty cool because number 3, because so we have to our way of thinking, the way we have been thinking, but as we're learning all of the about the conspiracy theory thinking, about the Constitution, about judgment, about migrants and all that, and what we used to think. So now we're learning now. So I think I don't know what I want to say. I just think that right there is going to help us a lot on number 3.
Yeah, and the more we recognize the things we need to unlearn and let go of them, we're going to be going forward.
We actually have to accept them. I mean, we have to accept them and realize that, and that, even though what we thought, it just isn't, and just take it like that on face value as we take the word of God. Sometimes even when we don't understand it, he said it, so it's so, so if it's proven to us and we're learning it, then it's so, no matter what we think or feel.
Oh, I just wanted to say I'm sorry, I completely missed to read the chat, but I think you guys already sorted out everything you needed to. So no problem. I just wanted to say also, I think there is a I don't want to say anything more than more than we need to hear about, but there is an issue, this issue of understanding what this message, what these conspiracy theories imply. I know, I don't want to say it that way, but I know people who follow this message. I don't know if they're following this message, but part of this movement, and I'm not baptized yet, but I know because I was looking on the Facebook, and the comments and some of the things that FFA puts out in their comments, and some of the people that I know, and
Go ahead. Are you still there? Or did she freeze?
No.
The suspense.
I know.
do you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Start over.
What I was trying to say is that there are people who come to these meetings, online, but on Facebook they seem to show that they really believe in the conspiracy theories. And I'm not saying they are not among us right now, but I'm just saying that it is very hard to watch, because if they have never heard it before, they probably would be in a better place. I don't know if they would be, but to me, I think that they join this movement, they hear this message, and yet they go on Facebook and then they post completely opposite things. And I think that, oh no, Jonathan, please, no, it's none of you guys right now, because that person is not here. But I have seen, I witnessed, and I did not want to think about it anymore, and I deleted my Facebook profile. So I just wanted to say that this is very important, that I did not think that we would not be able to translate this knowledge into real life, meaning that to apply that when you like somebody, some conspiracy theory on Facebook, or you comment something encouraging, you are actually making some kind of statement,
Yeah.
We need to pray. We need to pray for them, especially, the ones that are in the movement who we just need to pray that the Lord will draw them to these messages, and that they will have the Holy Spirit lead them to the truth and not grieve it,
Yes, also,
You go ahead first.
No, you go ahead.
I would have forgot. Thank you. It's also, this goes back to, I've brought this up a few times with people. We've brought it into our studies many times. Isaiah 8:20, if they speak not according to thy word, there's no light in them. So when each step of the way, as you continue to learn that, maybe you learned a lot of good stuff from this guy, that guy, or whatever along the way. As you came here, you started to realize that, they speak against the truth. And so you have to apply that and keep going, because now here we are looking at all the teachings on the two streams. That's what Isaiah 8:20 has been saying all along as well. And then we did that study, Sister Allie did that study, if anybody remembers, a while back. It's been quite a while, on the muddy waters. And why drink from the valley when there's a fountain in the mountain? And so those that hear those presentations and still choose to drink from the valley or the wrong stream, they're killing their own selves by not taking heed to the warning.
Yeah.
That touches on what you were trying to say.
Yeah, but also I think that there's also an element just simply I wouldn't say not being careful, but maybe their lives are too busy. Maybe they didn't quite grasp the message yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not because they mean to, but it's just they didn't get there yet. But it's just to us as a reminder. I'm saying it because to us that we too may have something hidden that we need to sort out, but we need to be ready to be humble before God, be ready to shed anything that He doesn't want us to have.
It seems like the things that have been coming out lately. Well, for one, you've got, we're looking at the role of women. That is continuing to expand. You're looking at the message of time. You're looking at the Sunday law is not a Sunday law. It's the union of church and state. It's all these things. And so it is a progressive thing, and we're having to realize, so it's a continuous humbling, and it seems like we can expect it to continue to grow. And it's going to hit nerves on every one of us at some point in time if it hasn't yet. And we just have to have faith in the Lord and trust Him and go by faith with all that He is directing us to do. And if we are seeking the mind of Christ, we will know His voice.
What I just wanted to say that I fully agree with you. And also I just wanted to add that this new, I wouldn't say new, but this new presentations that have been put out, in France and others, that the new angle that is being presented right now is that shift on the interest of netonyms, and this very dress reform. They're all preparing us to receive netonyms.
That's what I've been thinking. That same thing. It's all for them. It's not even about us that much.
Yes.
But it's also preparing us. Get ready, women. I think we talked about this, touched on this on the Sabbath, because not only are we priests, but if He's raised up women, what is this group going to be raised up to do? Aren't we going to be ordained and baptizing?
Yes. Yes.
That's where we're headed, I'm sure.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, Jonathan, we do have the most changing to do.
Huh?
Jonathan said we have the most changing to do, and we really do.
Yeah, we do.
I was scrolling through YouTube, and the Amish, the Hittites, the Quiverful movement, the people who think they should have millions of children and beat them senseless to make them obey, all of these people have our wonderful dress reform that we believed in up till now. And Sister Tess was right that we're not really going to want to be associated with that. The people of this world know about those movements, and they are very against them. So we're going to look separate from all of them. We have to.
Which is also interesting, because the harvest that is coming is going to be a huge harvest. It will be so big that
Amen.
It's like salvation wholesale. It's which is very, very I have never thought it would be like this. At least I have never had this understanding. How would these people that church considers completely, so far away from God would ever be able to be saved,
Yeah.
And now I see that God's love is actually so huge that he has found a way for this world to be saved in such a way that, yes, they may be Netherlands, but they have eternal life. I mean, well, not yet, but when the call
They
comes
will.
and those who respond, that is really amazing.
Amen.
I don't remember if I said this on Sabbath or was somebody in particular, but he's giving us, through our experience, we're coming to where this, I don't know how to put it in words, developing in us the reason for the hope that is in us, and it's giving us this ability to share things with people with such hope instead of such fear and doom and gloom. I don't know if anybody else can relate to that.
Yeah.
Because I found myself, I just can't remember if it was Sabbath, so if it's a repeat, I apologize. I just found myself talking with my son-in-law and realizing that I was literally giving him a reason for the hope that is in me while I was sharing some of these things. And it was after the fact or during the fact, this light bulb went on. Wow, look at what God is doing, because I know I've gone around thinking that, how do you tell people this stuff? They don't want to take the time. They don't want this. And you're thinking, but God is doing it. God is doing the work. All we have to be is be faithful. And back to when we're looking at working on getting teachers teaching on a regular basis on our Bible studies, never forget that he chose us because we can't, so that his name can be glorified in us. So each and every one of us, we have the faith and we can do this. What Sister Lana put together, we can take hers, just like all these presentations, we can take them and use what others have put together from these studies and go teach it. And it's sensible. It makes sense and we can understand it. And so if you don't completely understand it when you teach it, you'll learn it as you actually teach it.
So that's why for that we're making binders out of all these notes just for that camp meeting alone.
I kind of went through my head a few different times when after the fact, not like I planned it this way, but when I started working on my binder and when we started working on, John's doing slideshows, Adriana's doing slideshows, and I'm finally getting inspired that I think I can at least pull off PowerPoint, and seeing this, and I'm thinking, is that the 300 charts that were made? For the 300 preachers that went out and started teaching the message,
Yeah.
And here we have the internet, and Adriana stumbles on the 5G information. It all is adding up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Did you guys? I don't know if you find it interesting or not. It may not be, but there is a movie. It's called Battle of Thermopylae. Oh no, 300. Yeah.
What is it?
300.
Is that what Sparta?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think I've seen that.
The cinematic Hollywood version, or is there a documentary?
Hollywood version.
Oh.
Like,
Yeah, I remember that movie.
Isn't that with Brad Pitt?
No, it's with Gerard Butler.
but I guess to just have like a very rough understanding of what,
Yeah.
I saw that, but it was a long time ago.
I don't know if it was a Satan counterfeit of Gideon's army, but 300 people against the ginormous army.
Yeah.
Is all I remember. But Artaxerxes, oh yeah, that's right, huh?
Yeah, he was.
That guy was creepy. I kind of hated how creepy that thing was. That whole.
Was it the movie 300 or 3000?
300.
300.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Never heard of it.
Well, we're going to put your slideshow up on our websites. Are we okay to put the video that we've recorded?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put that up there too. And
one thing when we were talking about the Pope that I also heard, well, I heard it a couple weeks ago. You know how the president is the last? So do you know why they just have Pope Francis without any number after him?
Yeah.
Because
Because he's the last. There's no reason to give him a number.
Yeah.
He's the last Pope.
Pretty amazing.
I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you guys mentioned this, or I never heard Sister Tess mention this, and I don't know how it fits, but Pope John Paul II and Ronald Reagan, the reason why they were able to bond was because they both got shot. They had, like, they got wounded, they got shot. Someone tried to assassinate them. I think Ronald Reagan was May of 1989, and then John Paul was March. And that brought them together closer in a little bonding moment because they both survived a deadly wound. I don't know. I don't know where it fits, but I've never heard them place that anywhere. It just seems like a really interesting tidbit.
Yeah.
I got something I'm going to pull up here in a minute, but keep talking for a second. I gotta find it.
Lana, I like your wording. You don't have funny wording. It's good wording.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will try my
Thank you,
hardest.
Lana. I learned a lot.
No problem.
I still wonder when did the Protestants become Babylon? Are they just automatically considered under the umbrella of the papacy? That's why that's the counterfeit that we look at?
Protestants are modern Babylon, so I'm not sure. I mean, when you said that, I'm not sure how you meant it because they're modern Babylon, but it's, in the seventh.
The lines that Sister Tess is making of the counterfeit, she's not doing of Protestants, she's doing of the papacy.
Oh, right. Yeah, she is.
That's
but
why I'm
the
asking.
Protestants are the daughters of the mother. So
Right, so that's why I'm asking if they just go under the umbrella of the papacy, right? Because that's mom.
that's an interesting thought. Yeah, definitely worthy of expanding.
Because we don't have a delineation of events on a line for the Protestants that clear. We've had studies in the past about the national reform movement, but no one's put them on a line to match them up anywhere. So I don't know. Maybe it's just the U.S., isn't it? Is their line just the U.S. line? I don't know.
I don't know.
I think Protestants everywhere have the same message, so they would be everywhere the same false prophet. And
they do listen to the mother. This is just taking a little side note here. Adriana made the schedule for us, and I filled in a couple of things on it because we needed to send it off to Tyler. So we kind of talked about it briefly, but in the California group for one Sabbath a month, we're going to host meetings. The meetings will be for anybody, but what he wants is the people in California, those that want to be teaching. So we'll still be doing our regular teaching, rotating with all of us, any of us that are online from wherever you're at. But once a month, it's going to be a Friday and then all day Sabbath, a presentation on Friday, and then 5 presentations on Sabbath, just like a regular meeting schedule that you generally do, and then a Q&A. It'll probably be 3 teachers from anyone in the California group that wants to. We have a list of people that I've been kind of trying to confirm who will participate and who won't. And so on here, and eventually I'll email it out to everybody. Right now I only emailed it out because it's not completely final to the California group. But so that one Sabbath a month, it will be put out through Zoom, depending on whether or not we can get internet figured out at Rescue. That might not be zoomed out. We're working on that. But other than that, everything will be zoomed out. Once a month, every other month, it's going to be Zoom like we do here now. And then 6 of those months, it will be in the physical locations between Portola, Rescue, and Cottonwood. So that's what we're looking at going forward. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that.
People need to start picking slots is all I know, because the days are going to pass fast and we're already headed towards the end of August. So if you want enough time.
that is why I kind of went ahead and sent it out to the California group at least, because I don't know if you read that email.
I did.
Is Christine here still? Christine was here, right?
She was, let me see.
Is she here still?
Yep. Well, they're up there, both of them.
Okay, because I put, if you guys are okay with it, Adriana, Christine, and then Christina, if she can. So I thought you guys could all let me know for September, the date 27th and 28th. One presentation Friday, 5 on Sabbath, and it will be a Zoom presentation, like we do now, not a physical location. And the other ones, as long as we can Zoom them out, we will. So you guys let me know. You three let me know. Adrian, let me know if your mom can do that. If you guys want to, if you're willing to pick up that first slot.
Oh. So Elaine, with the, where are you referring that I would be teaching the parables? Is that?
You guys can all choose for yourself based on the same things that we've been working with.
Gotcha. So
the
between
topics are either from like Tessa's, take a topic out of Tessa's presentations, take a topic out of Parminder's, or out of the United States Constitution and Tyler, and anybody else who's going to be teaching these things.
Okay, so it's going to be me, Adriana, and Christina in September?
If you all three accept September, you betcha.
Okay.
But that's what I was wanting to make sure that you guys let me know if because I want to, what I want to do once it gets, everybody, because I'm still waiting to hear from Portola. Once we hear from everybody, I want to be able to plug in the speakers for at least 3 months, 3 to 6 months at a time, so that everybody has plenty of time to put together 2 presentations, and nobody has to be, asked at the last minute. Everybody will have plenty of time to put together two presentations each.
So we're not picking specific videos like we're doing on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're just picking a topic.
Wait, no, we can pick videos. They don't have to be in order, right?
Right.
Yeah, but we can pick videos and just go based off of that. So if you want to do Parminder's parable stuff, you can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Because that's kind of what I'm working on. So, but I didn't want to take something that you, Adriana, or your mom, Christina, is working on. Or do you guys?
The Lord will work it all out. Whatever the Lord puts on your heart to do, He will make it all work out.
Yep.
You'll be amazed at how He will time and orchestrate you not even communicating with one another, how it all flows together.
That's what I was going to say, flow together.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
So if you guys, and then Adriana, let me know about your mom, and then that'll take care of the first Sabbath.
Would it be okay if we did for at least 2 of the, because I don't know if she's got time with her schedule to do 2 presentations, but she might be able to do 1.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Just as long as we can get the schedule locked in advance, and everybody knows what they need to do.
Right. Okay.
Robert, I see you there. Your name's going on this chart too.
But yeah, I'm okay with that for me, Elaine. If you want to stick me on there somewhere, that's fine.
In September?
Yeah, September, October, whenever. I eventually do want to try one like in front of human beings.
In front of human beings, okay. Well, you'll probably be stuck on rescue then. I know that. I'm waiting to hear from him. He'll let us know as we get closer how many slots FFA will fill.
Okay.
All he said to me is he wanted me to have a couple of slots, and I thought, well, I still need to know how many slots is FFA going to take so that I can plug names in.
Yeah, I thought I would be cool with it, but then I was thinking about being in front of people, and I started to get kind of nervous. So I'm like, uh-oh.
You know what I did?
I need some practice with that.
Yeah, you know what I did? I prayed from the time he told me he wanted me to do it. I prayed because I don't like to go in front either. And I prayed daily.
Yeah.
I said, Lord, this is your work. Just help me to go up there like I'm on Zoom. And you were right there next to me because we between the 2 of us or whatever you did, turned the slideshow on. And I said, oh, great. It's just like normal. But
yeah.
I go up to the board in front of people, but I didn't even think about anything else that was going on. And that's what I prayed about. And I'll be praying for you on it too, because that was my biggest thing. I just wanted to do the work without being distracted with my own discomfort and fear.
Yeah.
And he did get me through that to where I was able to just do it.
Okay. So I'm just going to put it out there then, because I am gonna be transcribing the rest of Tyler's Alberta stuff, so probably I'll do a couple of Tyler's Alberta stuff on that date that he hadn't shown at Portola yet. So
We can rearrange this, but I'll throw this in here. Do you want 3 instead of 2 and your mom 1?
no. I don't want 3.
Okay.
I'll have to ask her if she can do 2 or just 1.
Okay.
3 is a lot. That's a lot.
Okay. And these can rearrange. I'm just going to stick your names in there, so it doesn't matter to me who goes first or who goes last or who goes middle.
Okie doke.
So in September, you guys in Portola?
Zoom.
No, we'll be on Zoom.
Just call Zoom. Okay.
Whoops, that was supposed to say Christina. Okay, and so hopefully it won't take too long to hear back from him so we can plug in, because I want plenty of advance notice to plug in for, we'll put her here for now. So that we get plenty of names to plug in here for rescue. But everybody keep kind of in mind, and maybe just be working in advance on knowing that you're, if you're on the list and you're willing, because you don't have to be willing if you don't want to be. We'll be praying that we all will, because the experience is going to benefit us all, and we're getting prepared to go out and teach the Levites and the Nethinims, right? So this will be our opportunity to gain this experience and this training. So keep in mind that there's going to be a couple of people at least chosen to fill in some slots probably in October. So if you're thinking that now, work on a couple of presentations and just kind of be, the next couple of months, be getting them ready just in case you're not. And if you don't get up in October, then you might come up in November so you're ready to go. Does that make sense? Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so I can't fill anybody in for anybody else then yet. So we'll go from there. Well, it sounds good. I'm really excited about what God is doing here. So,
some of this would be a good opportunity in Portola on November 9th. It's in their home field for some of the Portola group to try to teach then.
Yeah, I put in that email that because it was already scheduled for Paul to teach, and that
he can do that. He can do a couple, and then a couple. Yeah.
I'm going to leave it to them to decide since they already have that on the books.
Yeah.
So then, so we just do the same thing. I mean, when you teach, all you're doing is taking, transcribing somebody's
video,
and you just teach it like just doing what we're doing now.
Yeah.
What we're doing now.
But if you can, since there's more time, I would say try to grasp the information enough to where you only look to your reading notes for to find. Yeah.
Well, I'm working on 11 for the Alberta, and then I picked number 2 for the classes here. So I'm doing that right now. I'm doing Tyler's too, getting ready for that.
Oh, the number 2?
Number 2.
Are we doing Tyler's here now?
Yeah, we are going to probably switch. Everybody's been asking. We are going to switch Tyler. Number 2, you said number 5, Tony.
I know, but when we were talking, I figured it was so far away I could do 2. Because we're still doing this. It doesn't matter. I'll do 5. I probably need a little bit more time.
Okay.
I already have the first 3 all transcribed.
Okay, then I'll do 5.
No. What I'm saying is, I'll give you that, and you can study it so you can teach it better.
Okay.
But I still caused a problem because the other night John asked me if he could take number 1, and I said go ahead because I didn't know who was doing what yet because he was asking what we were doing next. So can he do number 1?
I haven't even started yet.
Well,
I haven't even started yet, so here.
I'm going to post the transcription notes on the SAC Fellowship website on the extras page. So you guys can take those 3 and do whatever you want with them. But since they're already transcribed and the lines are on there too, it's a good opportunity to try to read it and teach it in a way where you're not just reading it, where you're really,
okay,
teaching it better. So it's
yay.
ready to go. Yeah.
Like Tyler says to take it, reword it, and make it your own.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what I've been trying to do as I better understand it. Rewording it.
So have you done number 11 on Alberta?
What do you mean? He doesn't have 11.
No, I'm talking about Alberta test.
No, I'm doing 9 and 10.
Okay, I'm doing 11. Okay, cool.
So sorry, I have so many things on my transcribing list that I don't know what to do anymore.
So for Tyler, I got John as number 1, Tony as number 5.
5.
Okay. And then I'll be adding this to the email as we go out eventually so that everybody can let me know where they'd like. So 1 and 5 are taken and there's 9 total. Good experience in the Constitution for anybody that wants to pick a slot. You can feel free to tell me one right now and I can write it down while I have it in front of me.
Tony,
Francisco says that he'll take one.
Which one?
Pick one.
Pick one.
Well, you want to go number 2?
Yes, Jonathan. Adriana has your number 1 on Tyler's.
Number 2, Francisco?
I'll do one so I can transcribe it myself.
He wants to practice transcribing, so something beyond
Okay, so 4.
4. Is that what you said?
4 is not transcribed yet, right?
no, it's not, and I can't do it this week, even though at
Okay, he wants to do it anyways, he said.
Yeah, okay, so that works. But then, Tony, you're going to have to wait until I can do that then, because I don't have number 5 transcribed. I only have one.
You said you did. Okay.
I said 1, 2, and 3. So if you want to pick 3 instead.
Okay, give me 3.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I'll move you down to 3. And I still need a number 2, unless Adriana's going to do number 2.
Well, I already have it. So that works.
It's up to you, because I know you have 2 back-to-back right now, but it's not for a little while anyways. It's not going to be for a couple weeks.
Yeah, that works.
Number 2?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So you'll send those out, and then I could just get on it, study it every day while I'm doing my other 11.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I'll put them, I already have them in PDF and Word documents, so I'll just also send them to Elaine and she can send them out.
Thank you so much, sister.
No
This
problem.
is what I like, the unity in this. You know,
Yeah.
I like how we can work together, help each other, and
Amen.
it's really amazing how the God has put us all together here.
He's binding the sheets together.
Yeah, awesome. We are privileged.
We are. Yeah. I got to get going though, so I'm going to turn off the record. Is it okay if we pray?
We have to pray.
You going to pray?
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you so much for the incredible work you've kept up with us, Lord. I can't believe how far we've come and how much we've all learned and how fast we were able to catch up using this method of study and teaching. Lord, you really did have a huge impact on us, and you have been working with us in a great and mighty way. We're not worthy of it. We're the slowest learners. We're the weakest of anything you can ever see. And you just said, I'll show everyone what I can do. So we thank you for picking us, even though we're not worthy, Lord. We thank you for your love and your patience and your infinite wisdom, and how you've been able to organize us in a way that seems to be even ahead of most other places. Lord, help everyone to be able to do this. Help this to spread everywhere. Help everyone to be able to get more and more resources to be able to spread this gospel everywhere, Lord. Help everyone in this movement who isn't studying the way they should to find us or FFA or somewhere so they can learn also. Help no one be left behind, Lord. Help us all to be strong and ready teachers, willing to do your work when the time comes. Help your movement. Help the teachers in this movement who are getting tired, who have been teaching for a long time. Help us to be more useful to them and to each other, Lord, and continue to guide us as we try to bring all of California together and continue to bless our studies throughout the week. We thank you, Lord, and we pray all these things in the Lord Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.